I've met some unbelievable people. Like people that are travelling around Australia on bikes, eating roadkill to live off of, and yeah.
Who's the most interesting person besides me?
Besides you, that guy on the bike was amazing. But he couldn't even eat any normal food because his stomach just couldn't handle it. Oh. So he had to eat his roadkill that was like a bit rank.
And what made you move out here?
Some bad life experiences and some near-death experiences, and yeah, I'm just like, I've got to change my mindset. Let's go and have an adventure because life's too short and you can be dead.
Was it an easy process to just change your mindset? Like, you know, because it's like...
Still working on that one, but no, it's not. Especially when you've got a whole life of trying to fit into the system. And yeah, there's too much control of people. It's very hard to do anything, actually, especially if you're a woman. It makes it even harder.
Have you got a particular experience that you relate that to?
Oh, whole life of being told I can't do things. Yeah, as a woman.
Me too.
Yeah. No, I think I was about 30 when I decided, you know what, I actually can do things, but it was a bit late to follow half of those dreams. But yeah, worked hard at trying to change it, but haven't been that successful so far. But I've had a lot of adventures on the way, and I wouldn't actually change anything because all that has made me who I actually am, even though it's been really horribly hard a lot of the times. But it's made me be able to be very empathetic to people, because there's a lot of shit that happens to people that it's not their choice. Some people choose not to change, but a lot of people are put in situations that they have no control over. If these thumbs were here, so they thought it was dislocated, but I knew because they touched my wrist, so I knew that was. And if you had broken them, it wouldn't have been as bad because that was fixable. This thumb here now is basically just an ornament. It's got no strength in it and I can't use it. And he busted the capsule in there and they can't fix that. So I have a lot of trouble with this hand. But this hand, thank God, they microsurgery and reattach that, but it's still no good, and I still have a lot of trouble, and I can't do intricate work anymore. And it jumps, like I'm up here, and it's like, so I make a mess.
Put it into it, make it part of the pain.
That's what I do.
The dance. Yeah.
That's what I do. So if it's, that's how it's meant to be. But So for me, especially like with what he did to me, like I've got hearing problems and I've got a lot of problems now because of what he did to me. But I'm just luckier that I'm alive, and I really look at things differently now. And life is too short. Like we can all, it doesn't, you can have an accident and be dead tomorrow, so you've really got to appreciate where you are.
Yes.
And like when I've come here, I came here with, I had nothing. Like my ex left me in debt, and like he was a narcissist and extremely damaging, and I didn't know these things because that's what they do. They are very good at manipulating and hiding it. So then when you do find out, usually you'll see the full wrath of evil, which is what I saw in really horrific, like the really, really dangerous ones that, like the ones that end in death. A lot of them is actually up to 18 months, 2 years after you've split up. That's when they'll come back and hurt you or kill you. And that's the scary part. Like the full-on ones that, DVs aren't going to do a jack nothing. They're just a piece of paper. The ones the really dangerous ones, And usually the women know this. They'll say, he's going to kill me. And they're usually right, because, again, your gut tells you and you know them. People don't, and I mean, that's why there's all this problems with the DV, because people really aren't understanding it, and we should be taught it, and we're still not. it is narcissistic, sociopath, psychopath behaviour, and if we were taught to recognise it, we'd see it, and we aren't. The only way to handle narcissistic people or like borderline kind of person is to remove yourself. You can't change it. It's very hard. There's not much helps because I've got PTSD too, and that's that's not a good thing. And there's so many people suicide from that. There's no effective treatments. And the worst part is I don't just have it from one event, I've got it from several.
It can happen over time. Yeah.
And it's just compacted. Like my husband got burnt in a work fire, 40% of his body 3rd degree burns. And like I still even have trouble smelling cooking meat and stuff now. Like I've got a lot of trauma. And then one of the best human beings that's ever been on earth, like just an absolute, if you could have interviewed him, oh my God, he was an unbelievable person, and he did like really heroic stuff. And he got shot in the back through the heart twice, and was like, obviously he was murdered. And like, yeah, I've just had really insane stuff happen. And I've had friends taken by sharks. I've had like just outrageous shit. It's just like, how much stuff can a person go through? And so yeah, like seriously, it's enough for 200 different lives. Like, it's just ridiculous, some of the shit that's happened. And half of it now is, I think, if it happened to other people, they wouldn't cope, so someone's got to go through it, so it's me. But I don't cope too well either. But yeah, I don't know. If it makes you stronger, mate, I must be concrete by now. But it doesn't. It makes me like I've got an absolute marshmallow heart.
Yeah, I can feel that.
Yeah. But like I've had heaps of shit happen to me. I've been in a few car accidents that weren't my fault, like 100% not my fault. They've been charged. It's basically a slap on the wrist. Like, people can do horrific shit to you that impacts you and they just get away with it. And the last one, I got a fracture in my neck. I was in hospital, spinal precautions. I was still paying my car off. It was a total write-off. I didn't get compensated. I couldn't go to work, obviously. I had hair this long. It was so matted, they couldn't even brush it out, so I had to have it cut off short. When I was in the hospital, it was one of the most, it taught me a lot, because I was already thought I was really kind and gentle, but it taught me a lot. So I'm like, well, I wouldn't change that either. But like, I couldn't even move. All I could do was count the dots on, I was just like, that's all I could see is the ceiling. So it taught me a lot, because I have never been so vulnerable in my entire life as that. And first of all, when they took me to the hospital, they had to cut all my clothes off. I felt so, and because of my post-traumatic stress shit, I was so vulnerable, and there was only one nice nurse, and they had to put a catheter and stuff in me, and I said, I don't want anyone touching me. Give permission to nobody. And then I said, I will allow you to do it. And she goes, I've never done one before. And I said, I don't care, like, I'm not letting anyone else touch me. I ended up getting a really bad bladder infection from that, because she obviously didn't know what she was doing, but that's right, like, blah, 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 blah. But then when I went to the hospital, they transferred me to the next hospital, because at that stage, honestly, I thought I'd broken my neck. I could not even move my fingers. I could not move at all. So I was really, really scared. And this nice nurse, she actually put her face against my face, and she was so kind, and she goes, I know you're scared, like, you're safe, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, she was on for a couple of days. She was so nice. She, because I couldn't have any fluids or anything because I had a drip. So she'd get her finger with toothpaste and she brushed my teeth, and she'd make sure it doesn't roll down here, and she was really kind and gave me little bits of ice. And then I got the nurse from effing hell. And I should have put complaints in about her, but I was so scared myself. At that time, I was so scared. She was abusing the other patients in the room and me, and I couldn't even move. And she was accusing me of pushing the buzzer. I can't even move my hand, let alone press the buzzer. She totally neglected all of us. This poor lady over here, she was elderly, and she kept asking for the toilet, and she abused her. She left her in the shower all cold and wet, and she's in there crying, saying, please, I'm cold, help me. It was just horrific. And then she came out, and she said she had to go to the toilet again, and she wouldn't take her back in, and she did it on the floor accidentally. And she was so rough and hurt me, and could have had a catheter in. It was the most horrific experience of my life. When she took this out, she actually lifted it up and pulled it. I ended up having an egg here for like 6 months and problems with my arm. She was so abusive. So now when I wash people or dry them, I pat them even more gentle. I'm like, I make sure, because even when you're like that, you can't even see who they're talking about. You like you're just nobody.
Yeah, like you can't hear.
So I make sure that, they can see my face, and I've changed so much of what I do now because of that experience. So I wouldn't even change that, even though it was the worst time of my life. And then when they let me out, I'm now not even in the same town. They've cut all my clothes off. I am not a small person. I had no bra or anything. I had a strap, like a string top on, and it had been cut off. That's all I had to wear home, with safety pins. And I had a pencil skirt on, like a mini pencil skirt, and it had two. It was the most ridiculous thing you've ever seen, and that's how they were going to send me home. And I had no one to even pick me up. This wardsman went past and just went, oh my God. I didn't have underpants or anything because they cut them off. So I was going, and my hair was like this. I've never felt so low. That is the lowest I've ever felt in my life. And this wardsman came past and went, oh my God, you can't leave looking like that. So he gave me a pair of men's hospital pants that were like 20 sizes too big, and he folded them over and put a safety pin in them. And this here, he gave me a towel to put over here, and that's how I left the hospital, looking and feeling like an absolute bag of crap. And yeah, but one experience, it's like, because I've had miscarriages and stuff too, and like the more I'm learning about society and how we don't talk about stuff and all this kind of crap, but one thing that's affected me to this day that I still have problems with, which I don't try to go there because I get really upset, is when I had my daughter, and even when I was like pushing, because I had her within 3 hours, I had my son within half an hour, that I actually got septicemia, and that was like, I could have died from that too, but that's another story. But this one, even when I was pushing her out, everything was perfect. I'm like, oh my God, I can do this again tomorrow. This is like amazing. Yeah. And then I had this really horrible human being for the nurse. She actually physically pushed me back because I didn't want to be on my back either. She pushed me back, and she goes, this is how you're going to have the baby. Anyway, she's telling me to push. It's my first child, telling me to push, and I said, I don't feel like I have to push. And she's like, push. I said, no, my body will tell me. So she 6 times was telling me, and I even said to my husband, I don't feel like, tell her to stop. But anyway, you're young. And I ended up having a 3rd-degree tear. Now, I also thought that for years until Freedom of Information, I got my notes. I actually had a 4th-degree tear, which in a Western country is basically unheard of. Even a 3rd-degree tear is totally preventable, unacceptable, especially in a hospital. It should never have happened to me. So 4th-degree tear, do you know what that is? That's through all your layers of muscles right through to your bowel. And it's totally and utterly preventable. So she allowed that, and she watched it happen, and she didn't even stop it at 3rd degree. So I had a full tear, which has affected me to this day, and I ended up getting gangrene, and like inside I'm like this because they had to cut all that out, like, and I've got terrible scarring and terrible problems, and no one ever talks about this shit. And yeah, heaps of problems with my bowels, heaps of problems with everything else, and pain 24/7. And that's 30 years later. I'm still having problems, and I will forever. And it'll get worse, obviously, because as everything gets, you know, in gravity, and yeah. So I've got heaps of issues and problems with that, and I think that's the stuff that shouldn't happen to women. It shouldn't happen. It's abuse. Especially when you're in a hospital, it shouldn't happen.
Birth, it's the most natural thing in the world. We're born to do it. There's so much medical intervention causing
And I
traumatic
knew my
birth.
body too.
You know when to push. It's an undeniable, instinctive urge when you're giving birth. It's like, I've got to push now.
Yeah.
But
yeah, that was a horrifically terrible. And then they just, and I didn't even know it was that bad. I just knew I was in terrible pain, and I had 2 Panadol.
Oh my God.
And it took them 7 or 8 hours to get a doctor from Brisbane to come up and stitch me, and by then I was so swollen. That's why they made such mistakes as well.
And then you're having to care for your newborn baby as well.
Yeah. And she was sick, and then a few weeks later my husband got burnt in the fire. So it was the most, how I survived all that is, it was because I was so young.
How old were you?
How old was I? I 23, 24, I had no idea.
You don't know much at that time.
I had no idea.
And
First 3 years I couldn't sit. I had to sit like that on an angle. It was absolutely horrific.
Can I come and give you a hug?
So You're too funny. You're too funny.
Try not to burst into tears. I can't cry on the laps of everyone who tells me their story.
But I think that is a good thing to get out there, because people don't talk about it. Indigenous women have the highest rate. Like, you will get some amazing stories when you go out there.
And I'm going to fucking be heartbroken and devastated as well, right?
Yeah, but it's so good, because just even somebody acknowledging that, because it doesn't happen it shouldn't happen in our culture, because there's no excuse for it. But when you go into these Indigenous communities as well, because they also can't trust because of their past,
you don't want to go to hospital and get your child taken.
But they also don't have the medical care out there. And then one thing, because like all this breaks my heart, because like I've worked in those areas too, it should never happen in our country. We send a lot of money overseas, and people care. They don't care about our own country, our own people, because even the children, they've got the highest rate, higher than a third world country, of preventable hearing loss and ear infections. And they have access like that to antibiotics over there, and our own country doesn't. And these little kids are losing their hearing. And then, as you know, if you can't hear, your behaviour goes, your learning goes.
You're disengaged.
So, and they're already isolated and remote. So that will break your heart a little bit too. And the way they live, because people go, no, you can't even get tradesmen. They can't even get proper tradesmen here. So they can't even have things like plumbing fixed and this and fixed and access to other things, because they just don't have it. Like, even to get workers here. There's so many jobs going. And all these city people, you know, they say they don't have jobs. If they put them all on buses, there's hundreds of jobs out here. And they'd learn about what life is really about, not getting Botox in your lips. What is it you put in your lips? Filler.
Put Botox in. I got the wrong one.
They should do that, because maybe it'd shut them up a bit. So I don't know. What are you doing now?
Yeah, let's go to your house.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
All right. Let's go to my house.
Is it walking?
I'll give you. No, you can drive. Do you want to stay?
Well,
Do you want to
I
stay
reckon
and you can have a fresh start in the morning. It's a bit late.
I know,
now.
right?
So,
I know. What time is it? Oh, I'm still filming. So I'm going to Lali's house. You know, it's too late to start driving 8 hours to Barclay, so she's gonna take me to meet. All right, I'm following her. She's gonna take me to meet the site production manager of Survivor, which is being filmed here in secret location.